Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Chess4Life Spotlight. And I'm your host, Elliott Neff, National Master, founder of Chess4Life. And I'm excited to have our guest today, Randy Kaech. And boy, do we have a history of going way back. Randy has been a chess organizer, just retired from his career, and was instrumental in even my own path towards becoming a chess master. So we'll dive into that. Excited for the conversation and all the great work that Randy has done over the years to promote the game of chess and especially the benefits of chess. So welcome to the spotlight, Randy.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. And to get started, let's just jump in and let our audience get to know you a little bit. So do you mind sharing where you're from, what you've done, your career, and what you're focused on at this stage in life?
Sure can. And cut me off if I go too long, because I could talk for an hour. You know that. So yeah, I grew up in the southwest part of Washington State, Pacific County, a little town called Francis, Washington. And my dad ran the grocery store there. So all the little neighborhood got to come in, and he was a very social guy. And I had an uncle who would play chess. I would watch him and his Navy buddies, because they would play on the Navy ships. I'd watch them play. And I figured out how the pieces move, but I couldn't understand checkmate. It took me another year to understand checkmate. So then they started to let me into their inner circle, and I got pretty good. And that's how my chess career started. But it was a small town, rural area. So I have a heart for rural chess, which carries on to this day. Yeah, I went to college, graduated up here at Western Washington University in Bellingham. And I had quite a variety of jobs, but I just retired from my lengthy job at the post office. Now I've got it. This last year, I've been able to throw myself more into chess organization, and that's the short version.
That's awesome, Randy. So before we get into that chess organization side, what is a favorite hobby or sport, or is it just chess?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been around the planet quite a few times. By the way, my birthday today, so I'm 63 years old. So I've had all kinds of hobbies through the years. But as I look back on it, basically, I just enjoy people, which I didn't initially. I was kind of a loner at start, but I realized community is great. So just being involved in community, particularly like through my church. But hobby-wise, I've always liked gaming too. So I played in Scrabble tournaments, Settlers of Catan tournaments, backgammon tournaments, collectible card games, and of course, chess.
Yep. Nice. So a lot of board games.
Yeah, all kinds of games.
Awesome. Okay, so right before we get into the chess here, what's something unique that most people don't know about you?
Okay. Most people probably do not know that I used to deliver singing telegrams.
Singing telegrams.
So at that time, I had my main job was at a bank when I was just out of college, and across the street was a flower shop. And I approached them. I said, "Hey, you should do singing telegrams," and I could do it. They said, "Okay." So I'd go up after I got off work every day. I said, "You got any singing telegrams for me?" And so if they had flowers, usually someone would purchase a singing telegram, and so I would go to their house and sing whatever they wanted. And could compose an original if they wanted to, which was my favorite one. So most of the time it was just happy birthday. But sometimes I would compose an original poem, or like one famous one was Farmer. It was a 1-year anniversary. So I just composed a short 1-year thing, and it was very touching. She broke down crying. Anyway, memorable moments. But yeah, I like to sing.
Oh, that's awesome. So you've got a chess background, a music background, diverse.
Yeah, I was a DJ. See, that's another story. Yeah, I'm big into music. Music's a huge hobby too, as far as hobbies go. Big in all kinds of music. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Okay, so let's dive into the chess side of things here. So you touched base a little bit upon when you learned to play chess, pretty young age from family members. How far did you progress in chess? And along that same line, what would you say was key to the progress that you were able to achieve?
When you use that word progress, see, there's so many levels you can take that. There's your progress as a chess player, but also I've had my hats in all these other realms of tournament directing. So there's progress there, organizing like high school chess leagues, and then organizing on a state level. But let's start with just the chess playing ability.
Let's start with the personal chess skill, and then let's dive into those other ones.
So I was in middle school, and I'd gotten to where I could beat my uncles, and there wasn't much competition. And my teacher said, "Hey, we've got a letter here. this would have been in the 70s, Fisher boom time. There's a tournament at the nearest community college, which was an hour away. And Randy, would you be interested? I said, yeah. So I got this information. It was 2 weeks away. And every night I only had 2 little chess books, and I'd study those every night getting ready for this tournament. And so I went. It was at a community college. I was a middle schooler, and it was all ages. And I was the youngest guy there. And I won the thing. Wow. And then I quit because there was no one left to play. I didn't know that how all the worldwide chess scene, there's tournaments everywhere, and there was nothing left. So, and then I had an uncle who used to play at Everett High School back in the day. He's a doctor and a musician. And he somehow got my hands on Northwest Chess magazine. Boom! Whole big wide world of chess is out there. So as soon as I got
your chess circle suddenly expanded.
Wow. Yeah. And on the cover, there was that cover of Yasser Seirawan and Victor's Pupils in that embrace to get the new move on Yasser. But anyway, so when I got where I could drive, the nearest chess club was an hour and a half away, the Tacoma Chess Club.
Wow.
And they would have a 2-day-long tournament every month. And so that's where I cut my teeth. And long story short, we did a lot of tournaments there and other places, but eventually earned the expert title in chess. So I crested over 2,000.
That's awesome, Randy. Thanks for sharing that too. So, your chess circle expanded. It reminds me of even my early days of playing chess with my dad, and then playing with the siblings and with a few others. And my chess awareness was very small, and yet obviously over time has grown to where there's a global chess scene. Okay, so let's talk about those other couple of areas you mentioned where you've done quite a bit of chess organizing, chess coaching, teaching, helping others. Why don't we jump into that as a whole, both organizing, TD, helping others? What is it that attracted you to doing that? And can you share a little bit of your story in doing so?
Sure, man. I'm ancient. I'm trying to think of how it all started. Somehow I just slowed out playing. It's like I wanted to make events happen, and I can't even think of how I first got started. Well, probably back in the Willapa Harbor area, the rural area where I grew up. I organized a club there. And who else plays in the area? And I got those guys together, and we would commute together to play in leagues at the Tacoma Chess Club. And eventually I earned U.S. Chess Federation tournament director status, local club level. And somehow that grew. I remember eventually I got to where I was known in the area. And I remember the Seattle Chess Club hired me once to direct their tournament when their tournament director was unavailable. And so Walter Brown was in that tournament, 7-time US champion. And that was during the time, side story, when I was first dating what would become my wife. One of the first things we did together, she came to see this tournament and look at all these strange chess players. And she can do a great imitation of Walter Brown to this day. in time travel. All nervous, you'd always get time. But,
that's awesome.
So I got the director chops. And then, of course, I moved up to Whatcom County as a result of going to Western Washington University, and had various jobs there, settled down in the postal job. And when I was settled in the community, I was meeting with a teacher at the high school, and an old friend who we went to college together. And we were talking about, now that I'm setting down roots and got a family going, I want to get involved in the community. And as a result of this discussion, he was a teacher. He said, at the high school, you like chess, you like working with kids, with youth, you've done that before. How about a chess club? Oh, nice. So thus the chess club at Ferndale High School started. And then, because of the nature of my job, I got off work at such a time I could go to the other schools, and I would approach the other schools and say, who wants to start a high school chess league? That was humorous. Principals are busy cats, and the principal has to prove it. But like, for example, Blaine High School, the principal says, follow me. And he walks me over to this room and says, science teacher, Mr. Syed, you're our new chess club advisor. Meet Randy. and he was the advisor for 20 years. Great guy, Don Syed. Wow. Anyway, so I helped get the high school league started up in the Northwest. And yeah, just organizational initiative, and that kind of comes out of, I think, my situation. And I was in a rural area. I didn't have the opportunities. And so I enjoyed giving opportunities to other kids to play.
Nice. So here you were. So let me just make sure I captured this correctly. What I'm basically hearing is you became a tournament director because there was a lack of tournaments. You saw a need and you filled it. It's like,
Yeah.
well, let's get together. Let's organize. Let's do this, right? You enjoyed the game. You wanted to do it. And then because you had that lack, then when you had the opportunity, you were like, let me get this benefit to others. It was hard for me. Let me give it to others. So what else was driving your initiative in doing that? Why chess? Why was that something that you felt willing, passionate enough about to volunteer your time in order to bring these benefits to the kids?
Well, I thought about that too. And in that aspect, it's similar just to youth sports. And I've read a lot of books on youth sports too, because my kids did that. So like on youth baseball or youth soccer, the original impetus comes from something you know and enjoy. So like as a parent, I've got two boys.
Yeah.
And so then you get organized in your youth sport, whether it's soccer, chess, or whatever, because you realize that the sport itself has benefits, but part of that is the social aspect too, and just the development of your child. So it might be in the physical and then the social elements, like in soccer. In chess, it would be the social elements and the mental benefits and educational benefits. And so you want to see your kids thrive, so it kind of jumps out of that impetus. So if you see any of these coaches like NFL,
right?
They probably started off with youth sports at some level and they worked their way up because A, they enjoyed the game themselves. B, they enjoy working with others.
Yeah.
And C, they see the benefits that it has for everyone involved if done properly. I've also read the book called Why Johnny Hates Sports, which is, you can do it wrong too. And you have to keep your eye on the real prize, not the winning prize, but on the other prize, which is the benefits. You get the social benefits, educational, and the development of the child. And
that's awesome. That's awesome. While we're on that topic, do you have a student or two that come to mind as just like, wow, see what this has done for their life?
I was walking into the ice cream shop 3 days ago, and this guy turns around and says, Randy. And I had to scratch my head. And it was a dad of some kids I'd coached in high school chess 15 years ago. And he says, thank you so much for working with my kids. I think chess was a real part of their development. And he went on to tell me about their kids. And one of them in particular, I remember the dad, he was very talented. And he scored a great upset at the high school tournament, came in third in state, and he wasn't even highly ranked.
Nice.
And at the time, his dad approached me and says, he could be a champion. Do you want to develop this? And it was like, and my pastoral mindset said, this kid doesn't need to be a chess expert. He could do anything he wants. And I said, we're good. We're good the way we are. He went on to get 3 degrees, and now he's some tech guy for Google. But anyway, the dad thanked me. And so that's just one story. There's a lot of them.
I actually want to dig into that story just a slight bit further, because you said something that I think is profound, yet we went over it really quickly. And that was, here was an opportunity where there was a talented kid who did well, who with development could probably become a really strong chess player. But what you recognized was that might not be the best thing for his life.
Exactly. And this is always a hard call to make. If you've read the books like the Tiger Mom book, which I've read, it's like, and there were 2 daughters in that book, one of which focused, and the other one kind of rebelled, says, I want to be able to learn to take my own initiative in my own sport. And so she rejected the violin that the parent was pushing and said, and eventually got into tennis. And the mom had to choose carefully the involvement. So, and again, in a pastoral mindset, how do you soul care? How do you care for people? You got to think about deeply what's best. And there may not be a clear-cut best. I mean, this guy, I just thought, he would have become a chess master, but he had so many talents. I'm thinking, what role would chess play in his life? It's up to him to choose. Selfishly, I would have enjoyed working with him more, but I'm thinking, let's just let him grow in other realms as well. And so that's a call each parent kid has to make. But anyone in any sport, you can take it. It's a hard call. you look at these championship athletes like gymnastics or whatever, they've devoted a whole lot, and we admire that.
Right. Yeah.
But
Well,
that's not the only path, and not all paths. That's not necessarily a better or worse path. It's just it's a committed path. So
yeah,
it's a judgment call.
Absolutely. It's a matter of choice, right? Just like in a chess game, in life, you have many opportunities and many choices, and it doesn't mean that one is the right choice or not. You just have to make a decision, and you make that best decision you can. I appreciate so much how your heart there was for what is the long-term best benefit that I can see for each student, each kid. And that's what I love about, even at Chess4Life, why we exist, right? It's about developing the life benefit through the game of chess. And you can learn so many things from chess, of course, problem solving, critical thinking, all these things that we know about, strategy and such. Now, when you apply that to life and you go, okay, so 20 years from now, what's my goal? And how does this align with that? And you can apply this kind of thinking. And another element that I think you mentioned here or touch on without even saying it, but I've found to be so true, is anytime you say yes to something, you're automatically saying no to something else, because our time is a limiting factor. We all have the same amount of time. And so you have to choose wisely and carefully what you do. And obviously, I'm an advocate for learning chess, playing chess, and getting the benefits of it. But even more, I'm an advocate for doing that in your life. And in many cases, that can be going to a certain level in chess and then saying, you know what, I've gained the benefit there. And for a few people, it means, let me go even further and let me pursue that master title and do that and achieve there. And that's totally fine in a personal choice. But just making that choice consciously and intentionally versus letting life happen to you.
Yeah. Well, and two examples come to mind. A couple of years ago, I got to interview Robert Ferguson. He's the state attorney general for Washington State. And in the interview, he just says how chess has benefited his decision making on a legal level, because he's the lawyer. And he reached, master title. And then I spaced out. There was a second example, but
it's okay. It'll come back. Yeah,
it'll come back.
But even you mentioning Bob Ferguson, right? I've known him for years too. And yes, here was a gentleman who became a master level player and competed at that level, and has applied that consistently in his career as a lawyer, as the Washington State Attorney General.
Yeah, the skills, just thinking ahead, thinking 3 steps ahead. He applies that in his career, and thinking about how he thinks, metacognition. He's doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about what you're doing right now. So you retired about last year or something, right? About a year ago, maybe even.
Exactly a year ago. Well,
exactly a year ago. Hey, there you go. So you retired a year ago. And since then, you've talked about doing a lot more volunteering in chess. Can you share what's going on there?
Sure. Well, up until last year, your time's limited. I'm working a 40-hour-a-week job. So my involvements, I still had quite a few, but the main one was just coaching the local high school chess team, Ferndale. But now that I've retired, it's like I have time to do things I never had time to do before. Like I have never had time for private lessons. I've turned everyone away for 20, 30 years. So now I can do that.
Awesome.
Also, I'm the president of the Washington High School Chess Association. So there's an initiative to revive high school chess post-COVID. Mm-hmm. And so we agreed to try and get some regional tournaments going in areas that don't have high school chess leagues. So I'm helping make that happen. I always, of course, been founder and co-director of the local high school league. Yep. I'm on a nonprofit, chess nonprofit boards. There's some work there to be done. I also have more time to organize the local tournaments here in my county. So I've got Saturday tournaments going.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. So you're basically expanding your time involvement to bring the benefits of chess to a broader audience, and I want to share a quick little memory here going back, because you mentioned high school chess, and that's when I believe you and I first connected, when I was in high school, right? I was homeschooled, but playing on the Linden High School chess team, wanting to get so much better. And you graciously donated your time in what was a very effective period of training where we played a training match, 6 games, if I recall correctly, 3 as white, 3 of each color in the chess game. Long match.
Were they all the English opening?
We focused on the English opening when I was playing the dark pieces, and we focused upon basically the reverse of that with the closed Sicilian primarily.
Okay.
When I was playing the light pieces, and what an experience that was for you to take your time as an expert level chess player. And here I was a growing teenager, probably 1700-ish in rating, in chess rating, and you donated your time to play these hours long games and then review the games together. And you're working a job while I'm studying chess here. And that was a huge step forward in my growth because I was a self-taught master. I didn't have resources to pay for coaches at the time. And I'm just grateful for that and wanted to mention that, Randy. You influenced my life and my journey. And then I remember you donating, or not donating, but lending me a whole box of chess books. And
Yeah,
I devoured a good number of those. And I like to say I'm a master because I've read 100 chess books plus. You know, I read every book I could get my hands on, and some of those came from you, such as Moving On or How to Become a Candidate Master, right? Was one of the books titles I still
Alex Dunn, yes.
By Alex Dunn, absolutely. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I'm so grateful in my own life for what you've done to help me as well as so many others. Talking about chess here, let's dive into what's one of your highlight chess memories, and does that tie into a chess game that maybe you would like to share?
Probably the highlight memories looking back are just the years of coaching the high school chess, because that's what I had time for, and just working with the kids at the high school. So you're coaching and you're looking forward to league play.
Yep.
And which with all the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat there. And then if you do well, you get to go to state. So the state trips are a bonding time, just going there, because typically we'd have to drive down to Seattle, hour-and-a-half drive, and crash overnight somewhere. And I want to thank you for one time I said, can we crash on your floor at your Chess4Life center, Elliott, please? Because our budget wasn't that big, and you said yes. So we had a camp out, chess camp out. And my mattress deflated and I didn't sleep too well, or whatever. It was great. But so yeah, the years of just coaching high school chess have been very rewarding, and because I enjoy working with the youth. But later I did bring a chess game if you want to go over it.
I would love to do that. So let me share my screen and let's walk through this game.
Now a good time, yeah.
And can you give us a little background to this game? So what makes this game so special?
What makes the game so special is not necessarily the event even, or the opponent, but the game itself. Was just the moves on the board were memorable. It's kind of like a 3-stage game with like a 3-act play in this game. So you're about to see, if we go over the game, 3 different acts, like where the curtain closes and now a new act gets to start. So
nice. Okay, so who was playing this game as I share my screen?
Yeah, so I'm white. The opponent is Steve Hammer. We're both rated about 1700, and lost in my archives. I have the actual score sheet somewhere. I can't tell you the event it was at. But
nice. So memorable game here. Playing what would be considered a Class B at the time, someone close to your level, and you've got this match going on. Was it a speed chess game? Was it a long tournament game?
No, this is a tournament game. So this would have been a tournament game. The actual, probably the time control back then was 40 moves in 90 minutes. And that's when the first time control ended. Right. And then you had another time control after that.
Which for those listening means 90 minutes per side for the first 40 moves of the game, which could be a 3-hour period. And then if you go beyond 40 moves, you get an additional time control, which could be another hour or 2. So let's take a look at this. And you're playing the light pieces, and let me jump right in and let's begin. Let's play through this.
So the prologue will be up to move 15. So we can just watch the
so we have some opening moves where, for those listening who might not know about openings, this is called the Sicilian defense, where white plays e4 and black responds with c5, trying to control the middle of the board here. And so we got an opening pattern where the battle's really about the center, and the white pieces stake their claim in the middle, the dark pieces counter. And you can see the pieces are flowing towards the middle. The king gets castled to safety. So we've input these moves ahead of time so we could go quickly through here. And Do you want to mention anything right here, or are we still good?
We're good. I can't see the move number, but when we hit move 14, we'll know it.
Okay.
We'll hit act one.
So here, I'll just mention too, as I see this, Randy's playing the white pieces. His king is safe and castled. However, the dark queen is staying on this side, keeping an eye on this king. And Randy retreats, captures in the center. Notice an attack on the queen. Queen moves to safety, back to the middle. Knight retreats, attacking the queen again. We got a lot of queen moves here. And now the queen appears to be back over on this side, and yet notice it's keeping an eye close to this king.
Oh, yeah.
Here come the pieces. They keep on coming out. Quick tip for those who might not be strong chess players. You've got a whole row of pieces on that back rank, which is a powerful set of pieces. And if you're going to play good chess, make sure you use as many of them as possible in your battles. So you'll notice how Randy's bringing them all out. And here I get the feeling this might even be a mistake, because notice the Dark Knight is jumping forward to attack, and yet the king is still in the middle. And there's 3 other pieces that haven't moved out, whereas Randy's pieces are mostly coming out here. Anyway, that's my feeling without doing a deep analysis. Let's see what happens.
Yes,
Randy
black has a very aggressive intent in this game.
Wow, look at this. So many pieces. If you count them, notice there's 3 pieces piling up on this pawn, and the tension is building. And the pawn moves to safety. And
okay, here's where Act 1
begins. Randy, what is going on here?
Yes, we call Act 1 here Knight in Suspense. I mean, this is the type of idea where he doesn't save the knight. What's going on? Well, he's got this aggressive idea, and it's the type of thing I read about it in a book, but actually getting to see it in a game against me. So he's leading the knight. He's saying, "Come, take me, juicy knight." But if I take that knight, of course, he'll recapture with the pawn.
Let's just play that out a sec. If you take a knight worth 3 points,
I get greedy and take it,
and the pawn takes back worth only 1, so the dark pieces have given up 2 points of material. Suddenly this rook has a wide open line aiming at this king.
Yes.
Whew. That feels dangerous.
Yes. So that the knight is poison. It's a poison knight. It's a Trojan horse. Don't go there. Don't let the horse into your gate.
What's really funny is if the knight then moves to safety, or let's say goes to the middle and tries to trade, I'm suddenly seeing something. The bishop could come in checking the king. The king has only 1 square to go here. And now you see how you'd love to put the queen right on h2.
Yes.
Because that would checkmate this king. The bishop could move in here, clearing the line.
Exactly.
The king is in check. And the only delay for it would be to block with the bishop, which isn't going to help much. But if the king takes here, game's over.
Game over.
Our pieces win. Ouch. So a lot of danger in the position here.
Yes.
So what do you do about it? So that's something that could have happened. And instead, you chose back to move. Let's go back here. So here we are.
H5. Okay. Ooh, hang on. I don't take the poison knight. I say I can't take that knight. But what can I get rid of it? I don't know how to get rid of it. So I figure I'm just going to develop my pieces and live in this state of suspense for a few moves here.
Just leave it there. Okay, so you bring your rook to the middle, and I'm going to point out one more thing here. Every piece on your back rank has moved at least once. Very cool. You've brought every piece forward. This rook even has moved towards the middle where it's lining up this way. You're now counterattacking. You're attacking this bishop, trying to take it with your battery of queen and rook. What a position filled with tension. So what does your opponent do about your threat to his bishop?
And can he leave his knight there? Because I'm threatening to take his knight.
Right. So he just goes in, comes in even closer.
Now, can I take it with my knight?
And I hope everybody saw the queen.
No, I can't.
Slide in checkmate. Ouch.
I can't even take it. So he's got 2 pieces he's saying that are poison. I can't take his knight. I can't take his. Of course, I'm in check.
Yep.
He's feeding me poison, and I'm trying not to take it.
Your only choice, put your king in the corner. Not the safest place with all these pieces aiming down at you, but for the moment. So what do you do? Okay, so now he castles.
And he leaves his knight, his bishop there, and now can I take his knight? No, we still can't take his knight.
Same trouble.
He's just leaving it there. He's teasing me. He's torturing me.
Whoa. So you ignore all of the threats over here, and instead you push.
Yeah. Well, I had to spend some time making sure that I'm not going to die or that I can't capture something. I want to take that bishop. I want to take that knight, but one must not be hasty. One must resist the initial impulses of materialism.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed right away is literally on the turn where he now decides where to put his king, and he's going all in. He's putting his king over on this side of the board where he has one pawn in its original position. We call it a pawn shield protecting the king usually, and there's only one pawn in its original position. So he's willing to put his king over on this side in order to bring the rook maybe over or line up with your queen and continue trying to get to your king in the corner. And your immediate response, I love actually, you're like, okay, you're putting your king there. I'm going to open the lines and head for your king. And you push a pawn, ignoring the fact that he can just take it.
Yes. I'm trying to distract him because if he's not careful, those pieces that are poison might actually be consumable at some point.
Awesome. And here's a very good principle in chess right here is material, meaning points and pieces and pawns and all of these are very important, yet are worth considering trading just for other benefits. And in this case, it would be benefits like now we have a little bit more open lines toward the king. And maybe we're starting to build the attack, the initiative, to try to distract them from their attack while we get our own attack going. So very dynamic game here. Whoa, 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 whoa. What just happened?
Well, I've got a discovered attack on his knight.
So his knight has nothing protecting it, and your queen is lined up with it.
Yes, and I'm trying to disrupt that careful structure he's got on the king side of the board so that maybe I can capture something.
Wow. And you chose to place it in the middle of the board.
Oh, knights love the middle. Yes, they do.
Where it's centralized, attacking 8 squares or defending. Very powerful place. Now you've got this open double attack on his knight. You're threatening his queen. He cannot afford to let that knight live. Just no way. So he takes it.
He takes that way. Yes, indeed.
So you take out his knight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you've kind of traded knights through a neat little tactic. And what has it done? Your queen's now aiming towards his king. He's still got these pieces aiming at your king, but you're kind of just holding. You got a defensive structure set, and you're like, I'm just going to leave it.
Yep, it's a knight in suspense. This is Act 1. That whole knight is hanging there over the board.
Wow. Good point here too, by the way. In chess, if you see a capture, don't necessarily play it right away. It might look good, but maybe there's a trap involved, or maybe there's just a better move involved. So just because you can take a piece doesn't mean you should always do it. Got to think about the consequences. Okay, so what happens next? Knight takes your bishop. So he finally releases.
Oh, he finally breaks the tension. That knight that was hanging over me finally decides to make a move. So thus concludes Act 1. The knight's no longer hanging there.
So part 1 of a 3-part game. So part 1, the knight is hanging and finally decides to eliminate this bishop. And I wonder if maybe your opponent was thinking, uh-oh, you know what? This queen's coming. Now this bishop could maybe slide into here and attack my queen and rook. And it's like, okay, maybe I should start thinking about my own king a bit.
Yes.
So knight takes and you recapture. And then suddenly I see a threat. Now without the knight, White is threatening to take this bishop with 2 attackers and now only 1 defender.
Right.
So the bishop runs away, counterattacking.
Okay, so my king is feeling a lot happier now. It's like, whew,
Yep.
all these pieces that were kind of breathing down my neck, I'm feeling better.
Yep. So with your king feeling better, your queen over here, part 2 of your game.
Yes, part 2. We have a little intermission for a few moves until part 2 starts.
Okay, so your queen retreats from the threat. You decide to go back towards the middle. Bishop slides forward, creating a threat on your rook. You just slide away, and more importantly, line up with his queen and king. He doesn't like the looks of that, so he takes your pawn. You take back, which looks like a major threat, but he had a plan to block it, so his bishop retreats.
And now here starts Act 2, which I call the monster pin. He's got this huge pin here. My rook is lined up with his bishop, queen, and king. How is he going to extricate his pieces? Because I've got them tied down with a rope.
So for people new to chess, a pin is when a lower value piece like this bishop is shielding something more valuable behind. And in this case, the two most important pieces are shielded by this bishop. So we call that bishop pinned. It does not dare move because of what's behind it. And in chess, that's a tactic you can try to exploit, usually by building pressure on that pin. Let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. Immediately, we have 2 pieces now lined up on it. That's called, by the way, a battery in chess. 2 pieces lined up the same way. Another great tactic, and Randy's using it to exploit this pin. And the response is, get one of the pieces out of that pin.
Trying to get out of it.
But here comes a rook. And instead of lining up in a battery on this one, this rook creates a second pin. Notice the pawn is pinned to the king. And does anybody see the threat? In pinning this pawn, which can no longer move because of the king behind it, it's basically saying this pawn is no longer defending the bishop. So Randy's created a tremendous threat here of just simply take that bishop because there's no pawn defending. And how does the dark pieces escape that? Running out of the second pin with the king. And now what's really funny is look at how the kings are in opposite corners of the board.
They're trying to hide.
The question is, who's going to get to the other king first? Oh, look at that. There's that pin. The knight joins the battle. The rook is in the battle. The queen is in the battle. That's 3 attackers. And at the moment, I only count 2 defenders. This queen and this pawn, which means there's a major threat to win some material. 3 attackers. And, oh, counterattack. Instead of defending it again, the dark pieces go on the counter offense, creating their own pin to try to stop this knight from joining in the attack. Love that.
Somehow he finds a way out of this monster pin with that move. I thought he couldn't find a way out, but he did.
He neutralized the knight, and you ignored that and simply went, I'll bring another attacker. And look at how many pieces are lined up here, even though this knight in the middle is kind of neutralized due to the counter pin. So what does the dark pieces do? And they bring another defender. What a battle, all over a single piece, a single pin. That's awesome. So what do we do next? Oh, look at that. Most people would not think of retreating in order to attack. But Randy backs up the queen, and notice that removes the pin. So now all 4 of those pieces, these 4 are all putting pressure. And the next move looks like the dark pieces can't take that pressure anymore, and they simply trade a piece to try to eliminate some pressure. Randy takes back with a pawn. By the way, I noticed one thing. The pawn takes back, but has a really tricky threat. The pawn is threatening to join the attack on this pinned piece. And what did the dark pieces do now? Too much pressure. The queen moves away.
He gets out of that pin. I had a huge pin and somehow he finagled his way out of it. It's like,
finally he's out of the
I
pin.
couldn't capitalize on this pin. So much pressure and I couldn't make it work.
So does this where phase 3 starts?
Pretty soon. We have a slight intermission before we hit stage 3.
So the pin is gone. There was a lot of back and forth there, a lot of counterattacking, defending, trading. Randy decides to trade. This move, I have to say, I think is a mistake, because with the light pieces coming towards this king, it feels like this king is even more open. And just feels to me like it would be wiser to play a move like rook takes to eliminate another attacker.
And that is the move that starts Act 3.
Okay.
Which is the tasty king hunt. So now I'm smelling that black king is exposed. Plus, he's in time trouble. He has to manage his time wisely in this game, and he has not. He's got like 10 moves to make for his last 5 minutes at this point, and his king is exposed. So I'm trying to capitalize on that.
So important points here. We mentioned the pawn shield. Notice how the white light king still has a pawn in its original position near the king and another pawn, which is helping shield this king. Whereas the dark king, while it got to the corner, has no pawns on their original squares in front of it. And there's a couple squares out, plus this one separated. This king does not feel safe at all. And so in part 3, as Randy said, with his own king feeling kind of safe now, but 3 attackers left, Randy's going to try to put the pressure on to try to get into this king. And literally, it seems to me the primary defender right now is this pawn on A6. If that pawn disappears, the lines are open and the game is going to be over. Let's see what happens. Whew. Immediate pressure attack. And defense. Look at that, a sneaky defense, a discovered or uncovering the rook defending.
And attack on my rook.
Randy just takes that pawn out. And what happens? Rook C8. So many things could happen here. For example, the queen could have taken the rook, but then this pawn would take the rook on D6. If we look at that, and now the king is even more open. And while a pair of rooks traded, this pawn is getting close to queening. Ouch. And so instead, dark pieces try a really tricky move. They ignore this threat because they've created another pin.
And black rightfully wants to bring that last sleeping rook into the game to help out somehow.
Yep. So what does Randy do? He simply moves forward, building another attacker on that pawn, keeping his eye on the target, trying to get through to the king. And the dark pieces swing over, trying to desperately to defend against all these threats. So how does Randy continue the battle? He puts a check on the king, forcing, since the king cannot move sideways or this way, thanks to a rook controlling the file, forcing a dark piece into another pin. And there that rook is stuck. I wonder if you all can see the move that Randy plays next. Powerful move. Did you find it? Your targets are this rook, which is pinned and stuck, and this pawn, which is pinned. And the move, rook in between, attacking both at once. And I really do not see a single way out of this mess. The pieces are just too well placed, the light pieces. And what does the dark pieces try to do? Give up the queen in order to stop the attack, hopefully. But does it work? Pawn takes, the rook is still pinned. The king moves forward to try to help in the defense. The rook protects the pawn to save the pawn and keep this pin. Pawn moves forward. And remember, players are moving quickly now because in a tournament game, there's little time left. You got to make decisions fast because if you run out of time, you literally just lose on time. And so these last few moves happened in a flurry. Let's see what occurred. Queen check. Oh, that's a devastating finish. because if the king were to move up this direction, can you all find checkmate in one turn? Checkmate. The king is trapped. Pawn protects the queen. There's no way to escape here because of the rook. That would be over. Same thing if the king went backwards. Queen to the same square. The king is trapped. So instead, sadly, rook needs to block. And so many good choices. Randy just plays the simple one. Pawn takes that rook, eliminating another defender and putting the king in check. And while the dark pawn could have taken, in the flurry of time, the king just moved to try to get out of check and resigned or gave up at the same time.
Yeah, tipped over the king here.
Tipped over the king. In a tournament game, you can resign a game, it's called. White has an extra queen here, has a pawn that's almost queening. The king is still in big danger. There's no hope here. Now, for students, I don't recommend giving up almost ever because you want to play it out and do your best all the way and learn the most you can. But that was, what an amazing game, Randy, of a battle, right? Controlling the middle, and then the dark pieces going on the attack, and then a careful defense, and then a shifting of forces to the other attack and using the pin all the way through. That's an awesome game. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah. Thanks for analyzing.
Oh, yeah. No, that was fun. I love seeing these games and the things we can learn from them. So anyway, back to this here. That's a cool chess game. We have lots of chess memories, of course. But let's move into a little bit more about the benefits of chess. So, at Chess4Life, we teach life skills through the game and different ones, whether it's one of the ones that we talk about, whether it's the mindsets or such. What are one or two things that you see chess as exceptional at helping develop in youth?
So many, but I think one of the chess in its core, kind of like cross country, because I coach cross country too. Now that I have time, at its core, it's an individual sport. It's kind of you versus the other opponent. Or in cross country, it's you running. You're trying to improve yourself. But when you introduce and key on the social element involved in the game, I think it even more brings out the benefits of chess. And because chess, you need an opponent. Unlike running, with chess, you have to have someone. And you learn from all the various social aspects of chess, whether it's just interacting with your opponent or interacting with your teammates. If you realize if you want to improve, you need to review the game. And then you realize that's how you and I both improve. After a game, you go over it with your opponent and you learn they have looked at things that you haven't even considered. Or you look at the same things and realize you came to the same conclusion. And then it helps you realize that other people think differently from how I do. We're not all the same. And I think a lot of the benefits of chess come from that social element of it, that you're interacting with someone
That's
else.
Awesome.
You're learning how to react to a loss or a win. If you have teammates, you realize that you need to help them get better in order for your team to do better. So the whole team element.
Yeah.
So I think the social interactions that come naturally with chess are beneficial in terms of the development of the child or the adult, because adults, as you know, many of them still need how to learn how to interact wisely. And you just realize that if I'm not looking at things from the other person's point of view, I'm not going to succeed in chess or in life. I have to learn how to assimilate different perspectives, and I can't do that on my own. I need someone else. I have to be in community to get that type of benefit.
That's awesome, Randy. I appreciate that. And not too many times do people say, oh, chess, absolutely. That's a social benefit tool. That's a social development tool. But what a great thing you did point out, that if a person gets into chess, number one, they need an opponent. There's that social aspect. And the etiquette of tournaments, as we know, pre-COVID is in particular, you shake hands with someone else. And imagine a kid who might be really shy or introverted, breaking out of that comfort zone to connect and say, like the rules have for etiquette, good game, or thank you for playing the game. And then even more wanting to learn from that game and afterwards interacting with someone. One of the best ways to improve, like we talked about, is taking games just like the game we just looked at and going, okay, what happened? What could we do better? What went on here? How would we improve? And discussing that with an opponent who you just played is a tremendous learning tool, and you're developing your social skills.
And I try and bring that out when I direct youth tournaments on many Saturdays. This summer we had 8 of them. And so before the event, I explain tournament etiquette. Like during a game, that's when it's quiet. During tournaments, I mean, coffee house chess is a different ball of wax. You can trash talk or whatever if it's your friend. But in tournament, here's how we do it. During the game, you're quiet. But before the game and after, that's when you want to talk. And I tell them, if you play chess and you're not making friends, you're doing it wrong. So we're about to start our game, but before we start, do you know the name of your opponent? Okay, time out. We're going to take 2 minutes to get to know everyone at your table. And then we have a social time. And then now it's tournament time. Now you're going to play chess with your brain, not with your fingers. So don't reach out first, not with your mouth. You're not going to try and trick your opponent into like, oh, that was a bad move. No, you're going to listen to what Benjamin Franklin said and he learned diplomacy. You see the article in American History magazine on Benjamin Franklin? He learned diplomacy through playing chess because he learned, how to interact with people properly and not make enemies. And because you could make enemies with chess if you're doing it wrong. No, make friends is what your goal needs to be.
That's awesome. You know what? You mentioned that article. I don't recall reading that one. If you could send me a link, I would love to post it even into the comments on this video.
Yeah, I think it's the latest issue of American History. It's a whole thing on Benjamin Franklin and diplomacy. Yeah, I'll give it to you.
Very cool. So that's awesome. And then even the extended benefits where now you can work with a team, right? Whether it's a high school team, elementary, middle school, doesn't matter. You're working with teammates where your points count together and you can play in leagues. And there's so many opportunities, let alone opportunities for travel and cultural barriers that you can cross and playing people in other countries. Yeah, so many. Anyway, as we're running low on time here, let me ask this. Now that you're into a new phase of your life, just like you talked about phases in the chess game, what's the big accomplishment you look forward to achieving? Imagining, let's say 10 years from now, what is it that you would like to have achieved?
Well, I think the process, it has primacy over the end result. It's kind of like in, was it Orwell, 1984, A Brave New World? It's like they had all these goals, but they realized at the end that the process wasn't good. Huh. And so I'm not so much fixed on the goal per se. I'm fixed on the process. How am I conducting myself? Am I inculcating a respect for others through the game of chess? The kids I'm working with, whether it's the high school league or the tournaments on Saturday with the elementary kids, or last year I got to do 8 elementary clubs. I did 5 elementaries, 2 middle schools. Am I imparting? Yeah. Am I a model of behavior? Am I imparting not just mind skills, but relational skills? Yeah. And so my goal is just to continue to improve the process by which I teach chess, that I would also be teaching these other exemplary skills through the way they interact with each other. And not just through, correction, yes, necessary, but that's a negative. Through positive, through role models, through affirming the kids that are doing it right. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to enjoy the process, and I've got a lot of irons in the fire as far as and just introducing the benefits to the state. Again, my roots being in a rural area, this initiative that the high school association has going and that I'm a part of, we've got these regional tournaments starting up. That's a new chapter. So I want to execute those well. Yeah. And I just plan on enjoying seeing who shows up and introducing them to the world of chess and the benefits that you can get through it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Randy. And one final question. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give? And I'm going to tailor this specifically into those who are in high school heading off towards college. You've done a lot of high school chess mentoring. You've lived already a long time of providing benefits there, of seeing outcomes. What kind of advice would you give to your younger self back in high school, or just to current high school students who are looking at college in the next couple of years, potentially?
Well, to a high schooler or to my younger self, but in both cases, chess can draw and I was one of them, people who are sort of introverts or individualistic. And I think in our country in general, men in particular, who tend to be more drawn to chess, there's a higher percentage of men, but men also culturally tend to be more, even though it's not the trend, but we tend to be individualistic. We tend to be in our own world, even though you see people saying that the John Wayne model is old. Men, there's parts of that are good, but parts of that, the individualistic element, you have to be careful with that. So what I would say to my old self or to a high schooler now is to recognize and focus on what we just mentioned, the community element of chess, but also in other realms of your life, and to amplify it or make sure that happens. And so it's just healthier if you're in a healthy community. And so seek it out. In chess, that would mean making friends with your opponent, interacting with the club, making sure that you're in a setting, if you're in a club, that you steer that towards healthy relationships. And of course, in all areas of your life, whether it's your vocational, your church, your spiritual community, invest in the community, because the community is the benefits that are going to last, the relationship aspect of it. And in chess in particular, you can do chess on an individualistic basis, but you're going to be missing out on the friendships and on the personal enrichment and on your growth if you neglect the community element of the game. And if you just leave it individualistic, you're going to miss out on the benefits of the chess community.
I appreciate that, Randy. And in terms of chess analogies, we talk about better together, and we talk about how each piece has their own unique strengths and weaknesses, right? The queen is considered the most powerful, yet if you play a chess game with only using your queen, you're likely to not succeed against a team that works together. And so recognizing that we aspect, not just the me, and going, look, individual talents working together, learn to work together, build that relationship, that community piece. That's powerful. Thank you, Randy. Really, really appreciate you sharing all of this today with us. And as a reminder to those listening, be sure to like and subscribe in order to not miss out on other great interviews and of how chess is being used as a vehicle to impact youth locally, nationally, and even globally. So Randy, once again, thank you so much for joining the Chess4Life Spotlight.
Thanks for having me.